Dis nou vir ons 'n groot voorreg om te gesels met Tony Leon en dit is oor sy nuwe boek Future Tense: Reflections on My Troubled Land. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, goeiemôre.
Goeiemôre. I want to start at the beginning before we get to the book, and I'm going to show the book to our viewers. Our listeners can't see it, but we'll do it on social media. Just taking you back to your upbringing, father was a judge and political parents, that love for politics was, did it start there?
Ja, ek was in Durban gebore en my ouers was baie betrokke by die politiek voor my pa as regter aangesluit het. En ek het in daardie soort huis groot geword en ek was baie jong wanneer ek begin oor die politiek gedink het. En my loopbaan net na universiteit het begin in die raadslid van Johannesburg en daarna na die parlement.
En net vir my baie interessant om van die perspektief te bring. Hierdie loopbaan het begin in 1974 en dis nou 47 jaar terug toe ek gebore is. En is you really truly a political legend. It's a long time. But one thing that stood out for me, and maybe you'll definitely remember this. Toe gekies is die City Council van Yeoville, in daai jaar was dit toe nou aangekondig dat die NP-kandidaat Sam Bloomberg het nou gewen. En Harry Swarts het toe die political mentor het gesê maar uitgevind maar hierdie is nie waar nie. So it makes me think that everything changes but everything stays the same. It's the game of politics. That's an interesting story for me.
Yeah, my late mother used to say everything changed in a moment, and Harry Schwartz, who was the MP and was in charge of the count there for me, he said there were a packet of 50 Leon votes under the Bloomberg pile, and there were. So if he hadn't been so hawk-eyed, I would not have become the city councillor that night by only 39 votes, and I probably wouldn't have gone to politics. I would have remained an attorney. So it does change, and sometimes, huge decisions or lifestyles or careers turn really on a dime, as they say, and mine did in that sense. And it's an interesting story. You're very well briefed, incidentally.
No, I read a lot. I'm very interested in politics as well. But for me, the question it brings it up. The comparison between the old and the new. If you take politics as a philosophy and as a job. So I'm taking you to the old South African and new South Africa. And I don't want to call it the game of politics. I would say the science of politics. Is it still the same thing or is it also evolving?
Well, I think it's both the same thing and it's evolving. And what I do in this new book I've just written, which you're featuring today, Future Tense, I do indicate that a lot of the problems that we face now in South Africa, die huidige probleme, inentings, die sogenaamde skorsingbesluit met Magashule, eiendomsregte, die vraagtaal by Stellenbosch Universiteit, het baie lank in ons geskiedenis begin, onder Mandela se presidentskap, en jy kan sê voor dit by Codesa in die grondwet. So soos King Solomon in die Bible gesê het, there's nothing new under the sun, because a lot of these problems and these challenges, sogenaamde uitdagings, didn't start, in 2021. They began quite a long time ago, but we're seeing them intensify now. And in politics, when I went to Parliament in 1989, there was a conservative person had just been elected president, F.V. de Klerk, and he beat the more liberal candidate, Baron du Plessis, in 89 to become the leader of the National Party and then the president. So the expectations were not huge that de Klerk would change in one speech 350 years of our history, but he did. And I mention that because people, human agency, never changes. It always changes, should I say. So in other words, you must never discount the fact that a person with power can be very surprising. And in de Klerk's case, I think it was for the better, although there's a dispute about that, which I do canvass in this book. And unfortunately, you've got to say in Ramaphosa's case, and he's been around for as long as I've been in politics. First, he was Secretary General of the trade union, Mine Workers Union, and then I knew him quite well through the negotiations in 1990 onwards, it's been very disappointing because there was an enormous hope that he would deliver on a reform agenda, and there's been very little sign of it.
Ons gaan nou verder gesels, meneer Leon, want ek wil nog by fight or flight uitkom en ook so 'n bietjie raad kry oor the damage that political infighting within a party can damage your party. But just stay tuned, we're gonna chat to you a bit later. As jy net ingeskakel het, ons gesels met Tony Leon oor sy nuwe boek Future Tense Reflections on My Troubled Land. Welkom terug.
Baie dankie.
Ek wil so vinnig praat, en dit word ook in die boek bietjie bespreek, en dit gaan glad nie oor een gevinger wys nie, maar ons sien nou met die ANC, en veral nou wat ook gebeur het met die laaste vergaderings in Ysmagashule, en as was daar 'n bietjie van 'n situasie in die DA met Mmusi Maimane, as mense dit nou noem infighting, hoe skadelik is dit teenoor jou publiek, of dat jy stemme verloor? Hoe moet leiers dit hanteer? En ek dink selfs as een uit die gelede kere om dit weer te kan hanteer, what's the right thing to do?
Ja, wel, dis altyd 'n probleem. Ek het baie sogenaamde infighting in my eie party wanneer ek die leier van die DA was met my adjunct meneer Martinus van Skalkwyk wat besig was om die hele oppositieprojek te ondermyn, en ons het radikale stappe teen daardie faksie in die party ingebring, en die uitslag was skadelik vir die party vir 'n tydvak of tydperk, maar daarna het die party stabiliseer. En miskien moet 'n persoon stappe neem teen die sogenaamde interne opponentie van die leierskap of van die projek van die party. Ek dink terug na aan die nasionale party in die dae wanneer PW Botha in bevel was. En jy weet, hy het nie baie goed gedoen nie. Hy het 'n hervormingsprojek in Suid-Afrika op proses begin het, maar hy kan dit nie doen nie, terwyl Andries Treenicht in die konservatiewe faksie binne die party was. So hy het hulle uit die party geskort, en daarna het 'n proses begin wat de Klerk voltooi het. So ek dink dit is noodsaaklik op 'n stadium om partye stappe teen mense wat nie saam met die beleid of die beginsels van die party tuis voel nie. Maar in die ANC is dit nou rampspoedig, want daar is 2 faksies of 3 faksies binne onder een vaandel, en ek dink dit kan nie werk nie. In die DA, die probleem het begin met die leierskap. In die leierskap, daar was probleme, daar's 2 hoofstukke in my nuwe boek Future Tense oor daardie probleem, en die uitlos of die uitslag was wanneer Michiel Leroux, Ryan Coetzee en ek deur Mmusi Maimane 'n mandaat gekry het om die oplossing te soek. En een van die oplossings was om te sê dat die leierskap was die kern van die probleem in die party, maar jy weet, soos 2 of 18 maand gelede het Maimane uit die party gestap. Dit was nie ons besluit nie, dis sy besluit.
En nou wil ek vinnig uitvind, ek wil by die deel kom fight or flight, en ook met u ondervinding as ambassadeur in verskillende lande. So basically 2 questions. The first one is, if you can sum up SA's current political state without using a swear word, how would you sum it up?
Rampspoedig. Well, look, it's very bad from the state point of view. And the point I do make in my book at the end, because at the end I've got a chapter called Future Tense, the title of the book, where I actually look at what I call the 9 signposts of where we're going, what's likely to happen, and what the future might be. And I'm not a clairvoyant, but I do think we've made certain very serious mistakes. And one of the big mistakes is simply to export our talent base. You know, one of my colleagues in politics, a man I have very high regard for, Cry van Niekerk, het vir my eendag gesê, behou jou kundigheid. You must keep your knowledge base. And we are very careless about our knowledge base. We don't keep the people here committed to the country. We have a race classification system, and the fight or flight I talk about in this book is about a young woman who was forced to leave here, not because she wasn't committed, because she was too white to get an appointment for which she was qualified at the UCT, and it was held open for someone who didn't have her qualifications, who wasn't white. And that's just, that's just nalatigheid. That's just negligence about your knowledge base. That being said, the one thing that does give me hope about South Africa, and sometimes it's hard to see, is that things that happen outside the state, outside the government, actually work very well. And we have companies like Naspers, for example, which shoot the lights out in South Africa and overseas. We have civil society movements, AfriForum, Solidariteit are two examples, the Gift of the Givers, the Africa Tikkun. These are extraordinary people who do extraordinary work, not just for their own communities, they do it for other communities. And if we could simply use what I call, to borrow Mr. President Bush's phrase, 1,000 points of light, I think there'd be a lot more sunshine here. But the problem is the government, although it's very bad at getting everything from inentings to dealing with the inperking or the lockdown, actually wants to control everything when manifestly it can't control very much at all. So I think South Africa is in a fight between the part of South Africa that works and the part of South Africa that doesn't. And I think what does give me hope is, despite everything, the part that works is still fighting back. And, one of the quotes I use in this book, Future Tense, is from General Smuts, who said, in South Africa, it's a country where neither the worst nor the best ever happens. And we must hope that that continues to be so.
I can't believe you said General Smuts, because my last minute, I want to ask you, put you on the spot. I will motivate people to get the book. I'm also showing it now. It's an intellectual book. It's not your first book. It's really insightful. So just get this book. But now, just a point out of 10 for the next names I'm going to ask you, like if you can rate them. Cyril Ramaphosa.
4.
Jacob Zuma.
0.
F.W. de Klerk.
7.
Helen Zille.
7.
Frederik van Zyl-Slabbert.
6. And that's because he left when he could have done much more.
Oh, Bekkie Cele.
0.
Musi.
5.
And Dlamini Zuma.
0.
And then my last one on my notes, Jan Smuts.
8.
8. He was a genius. Thank you so much, Tony Leon, for your time. And we'll definitely motivate people to get your book. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Goodbye.
Great stuff. Cheers.
Tot ziens.
En dit was Tony Leon. Het maak seker jy kry daai boek Future Tense. Dit is nogals intens.